Okay, folks, we are back in the courtroom, live on the docket today. Mr. Zangeneh, Mr. Hand Grenade Zangeneh, Big Sam, is going to cross-examine Luis Rivera. Now, Mr. Zangeneh is representing Sigfredo Garcia in the 2019 murder trial of, the 2019 trial of the murder of Professor Dan Markel. And Luis Rivera is saying, it was him! And being pretty compelling, convincing, and speaking with confidence and conviction throughout his testimony, although there are some strange things that we will be looking at the notes of as we go. But Mr. Zangeneh, as he's representing Sigfredo, has a pretty uphill battle with this witness. He seems to have done his best to invent some version of events that might start to make some people with severe mental defects think that Sigfredo might be innocent. But it doesn't really seem to work on the judge, the witness, the opposing counsel, the co-counsel, the jury, the gallery, the online viewers. I mean, he might as well just say, Professor Markel is alive, which we all wish he was. But yeah, so why don't we just take a walk through the park of the courtroom today and see what we see. Welcome all. Welcome to the chat. Slow down on the comments, guys. You are too quick for me, and it's distracting me from the stream. I'm not complaining, but it's like I have 3 jobs to do at once over here. So let's start with one of them.
If I may proceed, Judge?
You may.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Rivera.
Good afternoon.
Do you have any aliases other than your full legal name as Luis Rivera?
Yeah, Tato.
What about King Tato?
Yeah, King Tato.
And where is the nickname King Tato derived from?
King is from Latin king, and Tato is my nickname since I was a baby.
So we see how he got there. He's a Latin king, and his nickname is King Tato. And king is from Latin kings. You know, I think he must have had a team of specialists working on that nickname for a full weekend, night and day.
You're a Latin King legacy, right?
Yeah.
And I say that because you were born into being a Latin King, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And by being born into this organization, that means that you had family members that were part of the organization. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Objection, relevance.
If I can explain, sidebar, Judge, it goes material.
The judge gets pretty frustrated with Mr. Hand Grenade throughout his, all examinations, crosses, and directs. The judge seems to be of the opinion of just like, listen, buddy, we we know what we're doing here. We know what we're doing, and you are guessing, and it shows. Mr. Hand Grenade strikes me as the type of attorney who he passes the bar exam and immediately goes out and buys 5 suits. We're talking Boss, Valentino. I don't think Armani would let him in the shop, but you know. Hey, Caledonian Cow, good to see you, man. How's the neeps and tatties?
When a person's feeling traumatized, is traumatized, nothing feels safe.
And Mr. Rivera, what was your title with the North Miami Tribe of the Latin Kings when you got arrested in this case?
This case right here,
Or the federal case?
I was a leader.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's 5 designations of leaders in the Latin King organization, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's certain crowns, correct? There's like a 5th crown, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that called the secretary?
Yes, sir.
There's a 4th crown, which is called the treasurer.
Yes, sir.
There's a 3rd crown, which is called the enforcer.
Yes, sir.
There's a 2nd crown that's called, I can't pronounce it, it's CACIQU.
Cacique.
Okay. And then there's the Inca or the Primera, the 1st crown, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you were.
Yes, sir.
The 1st crown of the North Miami Tribe of the Latin Kings, correct?
Yes, sir.
We get a pretty interesting lesson to the inner workings of the hierarchy of the Latin Kings here. You know, 5 crowns, so it's a 5-point crown. You've got a secretary, a treasurer, an enforcer. What was it? Satzike. What do they do? And the Inca, the boss.
And in addition to being a local organization, well, it's not just a local organization, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
There's Latin Kings throughout the state of Florida, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in addition to the state of Florida, I believe there's 39 states in the United States where the Latin Kings have a presence, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So that would be, what, 11 states with no Latin kings? Which are those states? I'm going to be guessing here. Well, probably, what, like those nothing states, like North Dakota and they'd probably be in Nebraska, right? Maybe Montana.
At the time of this incident in 2014, how old were you, sir?
I'm like 32.
32. And you had been the Inca or the 1st crown of the North Miami Tribe since you were about 15 or 16, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many members of the North Miami Tribe were there in 2014?
I mean, that's a question for real.
I'm sorry, sir?
That's a serious question.
I'm asking it.
That can be a lot, no doubt.
How many, if you remember, as the leader of this North Miami Tribe, how many members of the Latin Kings were part of the North Miami Tribe in 2014?
Probably had like 100.
100.
Probably.
Does that include all of Miami or is that just North Miami?
That's just North Miami.
So including Miami, that number goes up. Is that correct?
Of course.
And as we move exponentially north and west and a little bit south, the numbers increase, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that there is a Latin King presence in Key West?
Yeah.
Broward County,
Yes.
Tampa.
Everywhere.
Okay. Everywhere, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to ask some specifics, and I apologize for cutting you off, but I just need to make sure I get my questions out.
How about Tallahassee? Do they have a presence in Tallahassee? I love it when Christopher DeCoste is like, Mr. Rivera, the Latin Kings are in Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tallahassee. You know, he kind of lines him up on that question pretty good. But he does that. That's what he does best.
So St. Petersburg, yes,
Yes.
because that's part of everywhere, right?
Yes, sir.
Naples, correct?
Yes, sir.
Jacksonville.
Yes.
What about here in Tallahassee?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
I don't
Isn't
know.
Tallahassee part of everywhere?
Yeah, but I don't associate people in Tallahassee. Never been to Tallahassee in my life.
So just so I'm clear, when I asked you if there's
That
Latin
usually means you're going to repeat a question. Let's not repeat, Mr. Zangeneh.
So out of all the places in Florida that have Latin Kings, the only place that you're not aware if they have Latin Kings is here in Tallahassee. Is that your testimony?
Yeah, I mean, they got them, but I don't know nobody from Tallahassee.
So now you're saying that they have them, but you don't
They
know
got
them
them.
personally, correct?
They got them, but I don't know nobody in Tallahassee.
Well, do you think that they know you?
Maybe.
Okay. And that's because you're a leader in a substantially sized tribe of the Latin Kings. Is that correct?
Yeah, they don't know me, but they probably know my name.
So could you pick up a phone and call somebody and get information on somebody that's associated with the Latin Kings in, let's say, Jacksonville? Could you do that?
If you're the leader, of course.
Okay. And you were a leader, right?
Yes, sir.
So what about, could you pick up the phone and find out if there's people in Gainesville? You could do that as a leader, right?
Yes, sir.
Everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Okay. Because in addition to being a local organization, it's a statewide and national organization, correct?
Yes, sir.
How about Canada? I mean, hey, our Canadian friends, do we have any Latin Kings in Canada? Are there any Latin Kings in this chat room right now?
And you've been a leader of this organization pretty much your entire adult life, correct?
Yes, sir.
How do you become, what do you need to do to become a Latin King?
I was born into it.
What about, what is your definition of gangbang?
Gangbang.
Yes, sir?
Latin King is a family. First and foremost, a family. There's one.
What is your definition of gangbang? I mean, come on. It's so funny, the questions and the wordage that gets uttered in court, especially in this case. You know, it's like, did your mother call him a bastard, a religious zealot, a fucker?
Organization that everybody take care of everybody. You take care of the neighborhood.
Do you recall if I ever asked you what were the things you had to do to become a Latin King? Do you recall that?
Yeah.
Do you recall what your answer was?
No, I don't remember.
If I show you a copy
You got to read it.
of I got to read it?
Yeah, I can't read.
Well, let me ask.
Does everybody believe this thing about Luis Rivera not being able to read? I mean, maybe, you know, but I imagine he can. I mean, it's not that hard. I know he's got some psychological issues and some maybe learning disabilities, but, you know, you can read. Come on. You know, you got to pick up a bag of cement at your paving job, you know, as a drug lord Latin King. When you're at your paving job picking up bags of cement, you've got to make sure it's Portland C25 or whatever, right?
Ask you this. Did you tell me on January 31st, 2018, that to get initiated in the gang, you had just gangbanged? Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
And would it be safe to say that when I asked you to expand on what gangbanging means, you said surviving life? Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Does that include selling drugs?
Yeah, part of the game of this testimony, Ekaterina, is we have to guess where Mr. Hand Grenade is going all the time. I mean, sometimes you think you know, but then he'll say something else, and you're lost again.
Everything, I guess.
Okay. Did you sell drugs?
Yes, sir. I gotta
Hey.
survive.
And you did this to take care of your family, correct?
Yes, sir.
And to take care of the nation, right?
Yes, sir.
And when I say the nation, I'm discussing the Latin King nation, correct?
To take care of the nation, what, like the president takes care of the nation? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, would proceeds from your illegal activity go back to the organization?
Repeat that question again.
Sure, no problem. With the proceeds
What proceed mean?
like the money you make?
Okay.
Okay. If there's ever a time where I ask a question that you don't understand what I'm saying, let me know. And I'll clarify just so I'll make sure that everybody's on the same page. All right.
I'm doing it right now, sir.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm doing it right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. So proceeds means what money you make. So the money you made from your illegal activity, did you give it back to the nation?
It's a treasure. You put money in a treasure.
Okay. So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Now, to your knowledge,
your business, any business, is made of hundreds, if not thousands, of
let me ask it this way. Is there a manual or a book that your organization uses that has rules in it?
Yes, sir.
And does it go by the initials KMC?
Yes, sir.
Tell the members of the jury what those initials stand for.
You said KMC?
Yes, sir.
It's AKMC. Amor de Rey.
Okay. I'm sorry. I can barely understand what you're saying. Can you say that a little bit louder, sir?
Amor de Rey.
Okay. And is that English or another language?
That's Spanish.
Okay. And hence the name Latin Kings, correct?
Latin King.
And even though you can't read or write, can you translate from English to Spanish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you tell the members of this jury from English to Spanish what that means?
That means almighty. Almighty love.
Almighty love. And that's your rule book, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever heard it initialized as KMC?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what? Well, let me ask it this way: is there a portion in that with regards to a code of silence that your gang has to abide by?
Yes, sir.
So one of the principles that's in your rule book is that whatever activity you do within your organization should maintain within that organization. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And whatever activity that you do, if it's illegal, you're not supposed to talk about it, correct?
Of course.
Now, according to your book, the KMC, is there a punishment or a violation that one receives if you provide information against another Latin king?
What do you mean by that?
So let's say a buddy of yours, one of your brothers, let's call him King Anthony, okay? Let's say King Anthony did a crime and you helped the prosecution or you helped the police prosecute him. Would that be a violation according to your rule book?
Objection, relevance, and hypothetical.
Overruled.
Go ahead, sir.
Judy.
Of course.
What would be your punishment?
I'm going through it right now. They're trying to kill me.
They're going to try to kill you.
Yeah.
So you'll agree with me that cooperating against a fellow king would result in probably the most serious penalty that you can have in your manifesto, correct?
Of course.
loss of your life.
Yes, sir.
Now, you have a tattoo designating your allegiance to your organization, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's on your stomach?
Yes, sir.
And it's the 5 points or the 5 points of the crown, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you still have that tattoo?
Yes, I do.
Are you still a member of the Latin Kings?
Nope.
When did you lose your membership?
When I went back to Coleman, back to the feds.
Okay.
2016.
Hey, see Malone. So who's this fancy feast? I know a fancy fiction, but I don't know a fancy feast. But maybe you mean fancy fiction. Yeah, it'd be great to have her come into the chat. Anyone know where she is? Probably busy out learning about the case. Yeah, she does know a lot. She's very good. She's the queen of the case. Be so nice to have her in the chat, though. Somebody, go get her.
When in 2016?
Right when I came over here to cooperate.
So at the beginning of your cooperation, which I would say late September, early October, does that sound about right, sir?
Yeah.
You lost your affiliation because you violated one of the rules in your Latin King manifesto. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you in general population at Coleman? I'm sorry. Let me ask the question this way. Where are you currently housed?
Arizona.
Okay. And that's in a federal facility?
Yes, sir.
And as the prosecution said, you are currently serving a 151-month sentence based on your agreement to plead guilty in a federal racketeering case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what racketeering, sorry. I apologize. Strike that question. And so as part of your federal sentence, you have been designated by the Bureau of Prisons, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your designation in the Bureau of Prisons is in a federal facility in Arizona, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you'll agree with me that for inmates that they're concerned for their safety and welfare, there's a special portion of the federal facility that they could put you in, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's called the SHU, right?
Yes, sir.
And the SHU stands for Special Housing Unit, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you currently in the SHU?
Not right now.
Okay. When you say not right now, I see that you're here in Leon County.
Yeah, right, Udi. Like, isn't he the whole reason of housing him in a facility in Arizona to, make nobody know where he is? Definitely have Latin Kings in Arizona. They wouldn't miss riding around all those natural beauty spots.
Right? So when you met Not Right Now, prior to them bringing you over here, when's the last time you were in the SHU?
In Leon County.
I'm sorry?
In Leon County.
In Leon County. When you were in federal custody, were you ever in special housing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about in Arizona?
The Arizona, that prison I'm in, is called a Dropout Yard, which is called a PC, protected custody. That's where they got me at right now.
So are you in special housing in your federal facility?
No.
You're in general population, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have they had this by they? Well, let me rephrase.
Is it just me, or does the Dropout Yard sound like the safest place to be, even if you're not a gang member that's flipped? I mean, I guess people still get stabbed in there, but less, I would think, by definition, they're all dropouts. So it's like, probably they all just get along.
Phrase that. You indicated earlier that if you testified against a Latin king, they try to kill you, correct?
Testify against anybody.
Well, I'm asking you testifying against a Latin king.
I think he answered your question, Ms. Zangeneh. Do you have another question?
Yes, Judge. What is a KOS order?
KOS?
Yes.
KOS.
Right.
Kill on site?
Kill on sight? Are you familiar with that?
I just said it, sir.
Have you ever given a KOS order?
No.
Nice poker face, Luis. I bet he's giving KOSs all the time. I mean, he's like that. That's his favorite thing to do on a Monday morning is okay. So we need to do about 6 KOSs and then we'll break for lunch and then it'll be back to the bricklaying job.
You're aware that at some point between September and November, the U.S. government put a wire intercept on your federal indictment investigation on your phone. Is that correct?
Yeah, they got caught. Yeah, I know.
And what I'm asking you is this. You know that the feds had you wired up for a month.
Yeah, I found out.
Okay. And you found out because, like in any criminal investigation, one of the things that they do is they show you the evidence that they have against you, right?
Yes, sir.
And you'll agree with me that in your federal investigation, you learned that for 30 days, the federal government listened to every one of your phone calls. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In October 2014, did you have, as a Latin king, an issue with members of the 400 gang that moved into Highland Village?
Yes, sir.
And in late October of 2014, did you, Luis Rivera, initiate a series of phone calls asking for assistance from fellow Latin King gang members? Do you recall doing that? And do you recall that what you initially wanted to do, or what you asked your fellow Latin Kings, your brothers, to do, was to get armed up and come and help you deal with these other gang members? Is that correct?
Action, relevance.
Sustained.
Have you ever been involved, other than the case that we're talking about, have you ever been involved in the distribution of narcotics?
Objection, relevance.
Judge Hankinson clearly dislikes Mr. Hand Grenade.
Let's go Sidebar.
May I inquire, Judge?
You may.
Mr. Rivera, did you sell drugs in the year 2012?
Yes, sir.
What drugs did you sell in the year 2012?
Weed and cocaine.
Did you sell drugs in the year 2013?
Probably my whole life.
So would it be fair to say that from your teenage years up until your arrest, you were involved in the distribution of narcotics?
Yes, sir.
And I know this because we've spoken about it. It was initially just weed, right?
Yes, sir.
And as you got older, you started selling powder, right? Have you ever committed an armed robbery?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember ever giving me an answer different than that?
I can't remember.
Now, you said that you can't read or write, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the difference between the words yes and no?
Yes, sir.
May I approach, Judge?
He
It's
said he can't read. You're not gonna give him something to read.
Judge, it's just a differentiate between the words yes and no.
No. Proceed.
Do you recall taking a deposition with me on January 31st, 2018?
Yes, sir.
And during that deposition, I was there and Ms. Kappelman was there.
Yes, sir.
And there was a person that's called the court reporter that was taking notes of what you were saying.
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm going to refer to line 22 and 23. I asked you, have you ever committed an armed robbery? And your answer was no. Now, today, when I ask you that, your answer is no.
The
Yes.
question is, do you recall that question and that answer?
Do you recall that
Be
question and that?
proper impeachment.
Do you recall that question and answer?
I can't remember.
Once again, Your Honor, I would ask to be able to show the witness.
Move on, Mr. Zangeneh.
Real flex in the no-nonsense muscles, this judge, with Mr. Hand Grenade. You know, why doesn't he just do the examination himself?
So you indicated you have committed armed robberies, right?
Yes, sir.
And you gave a statement to law enforcement, I believe October 4th.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were through with your question.
No, Judge, on October 4th, 2016. You remember that? Let me kind of refresh your recollection. You're sitting there. You got your lawyer, Mr. Collins, to your right. You got Detective Isom on your left, and you got an FBI investigator, Mr. Sanford, directly in front of you.
I got my lawyer. Who to my right?
Chuck Collins.
I think it was David Collins.
Oh, so you do remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to refresh my memory too.
Is David the older or the younger gentleman?
David is the father.
Is the father. Okay. So you had David Collins to your right. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're sitting at a table, right? And you remember that they told you that they videotaped the interview, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So would it sound about right that this whole videotaped statement that you gave on October 4th, 2016, in the presence of your lawyer, with Detective Isom, Detective Stanford, took about 2 hours long? Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And do you also remember that during that videotaped statement, you called yourself a jack boy? Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's a jack boy?
Jack boys that rob drug dealers.
Rob drug dealers. Now, when you rob a drug dealer, do you rob them on the streets or do you go to their house?
Go to the house and take their dope.
Because drug dealers don't keep their dope out of the streets. It's usually stashed somewhere in their house, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask serious questions with regards to these. I mean, do you knock on the door and say, "Excuse me, can I have your drugs?" Does it work like that?
No.
So would it be fair to say that when you go in there, you have the intention to either use force or intimidate by using intimidate with the use of force?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And would it be a fair statement to say that you do this while you're armed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what would be the weapon that you would most likely use during a robbery of a drug dealer?
A handgun.
Okay. And what happens if you go in?
What's this thing about someone smoking in court, guys? Philip Morris ad. Okay. I was thinking maybe mild 7, but yeah. I didn't hear anyone say, "Can I smoke in the stand?" or something.
And you ask well, let me ask you a question. Do you knock on the door or do you kick down the door?
I knock on the door.
You knock on the door?
Yeah.
Okay. And when they open the door, what do you do?
You give me everything.
Okay.
Give me everything.
And do you
Give me everything. Wrap it up.
set up surveillance before you do these robberies?
No.
No. Okay. So do you care whether or not if there's kids in the house when you're committing an armed robbery of a drug dealer?
I do care if the kids in the house, and when I do rob somebody, there's no kids in the house.
But you just told me you don't do surveillance, so how do you know?
Because there ain't gonna be no kids in the house. We know the guy we're gonna rob. That's it.
You know the guy that you're going to rob,
Yeah.
but yet you didn't do any surveillance, right?
Ain't no kids in the house.
So you're telling me every time you hit a drug dealer, you knew whether or not that there were kids in the house because you have those moral standards?
Yes, sir. I never hit nobody with no kids in no house.
I believe him. Look at that. Look at that genuine, worried, concerning face. Who couldn't love that face?
And you're saying that under oath to this jury.
Yes, sir.
And you understand what being under oath is, correct?
Go ahead. Explain to me.
I mean, at the beginning, you raised your right hand, you swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm sure as your lawyer has advised you,
Ekaterina says between this guy, Mr. Hand Grenade, and Rashbaum, she doesn't know whose is most mediocre. Yeah, well, I'd say Rashbaum's better at convincing people of his competence. And, you know, that leads to him being slightly more competent. Not by much. But Mr. Hand Grenade's got a bit of, like, nervous energy. You know, he seems to be aware that he's a bit shit, whereas Rashbaum thinks he's the Don, you know.
there is a penalty for lying under oath, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever lied under oath?
No.
That's not a proper question, Mr. Zangeneh.
Let me ask you a question. Do you recall when you pled guilty in federal court, there was a document called a factual proffer? Do you recall that?
Yeah, I heard it.
May I approach, Judge? No. May I approach, Your Honor?
What purpose is it to show somebody can't read a written document, Mr. Zangeneh?
Judge, it's got his initials on it. It has his signature.
All right.
It's got a date.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Rivera, I'm showing you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 2.
But we already have a Defense Exhibit 2 unless we're going to do separate documents for Garcia.
It's under Garcia,
and
Judge. I apologize. It's been marked as Garcia number 2. Do you want me to change that, Your Honor?
That'll be okay for now. We can discuss that later.
Now, you indicated that you can't read, but you know what your name looks like, right?
Of course.
Whose name is that right there?
My name.
Okay. Is that your signature in the bottom right-hand corner?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, your initials
Yes, sir.
on page 1? Are these your initials on page 2?
Yes, sir.
Are these your initials on page 3?
Yes, sir.
Are these your initials on page 4, sir?
Yes, sir.
And whose signature is that?
Mine.
And can you read numbers?
Yeah.
What number is that?
11, 6, 15.
So on November 6, 2015, is that the day you gave your factual proffer?
Yes.
Are these the signatures? Is that your name and these are the initials?
Yes, sir.
At this time, Judge, I'll move Defense Exhibit 2 under Garcia into evidence.
Sir.
Objection, hearsay.
Objection, hearsay.
For impeachment purposes.
I sustain the objection. At this point in time, I fail to see the relevance, but move on, Mr. Zangeneh.
Do you recall me asking you if you had the crimes associated with your factual proffer on your record?
Yes, sir.
And you told me that even though it's on your record, that you didn't do some of these crimes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll tell you that.
You told me that, right?
Yeah.
And the document that I just showed you did your lawyer, when he went over it with you, indicate that there's a portion that says, I agree with all the facts set forth in the factual proffer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also, when you took your plea of guilty in front of a federal judge, did he read this factual proffer to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, he
Okay.
did.
Word for word, right?
Not word for word, but he told me, he explained to me.
Okay. And
It's
in
the same the objection, Mr. Zangeneh. Let's move on.
which objection, Your Honor?
I've found it's not relevant. Move on.
Give me just 1 second, Judge.
Sure.
All right. All right. Mr. Garcia, I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera, have you ever used your position as a leader in the Latin Kings to recruit other Latin Kings to help you further any violent crimes?
Yes, sir.
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Yes,
You can
sir.
answer that.
Well, I got a question for you. I'm here for another
Well,
indictment.
Judge, with all, sorry, Judge, I'm objecting to the witness asking questions of the attorney.
Ask another question.
So if you could answer that, the question that I just asked you, if you,
Ask your question again, please.
sure, no problem. Mr. Rivera, have you ever instilled the use of other Latin Kings to further any kind of violent criminal act?
Yes, sir.
In fact, in the 1 month that your phone had a wire intercept, you attempted 3 separate violent acts reaching out to other fellow Latin Kings. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Objection, relevance.
I'll overrule the objection.
So you can answer that question.
Yes, sir.
So in a 30-day period,
You've asked it once.
Thank you,
He's
Judge.
answered it
Yes, sir.
once. We don't need to do it twice.
no problem, Judge. Thank you. And in the future, if I refer to other fellow kings, is every fellow king have the word king prior to a nickname or a designation?
Yes, sir.
So the person that you were talking about earlier, Anthony, was it Rivera?
Torres.
Anthony Torres, did he have a king name?
Jíbaro. Jíbaro.
And is he still alive?
He's dead, sir.
Did he die here in South Florida?
I was in prison when I found out.
Do you know where he died?
Nah.
Do you know how he died?
I heard motorcycle accident.
And this is the individual that you're claiming you called to find my client when Katie called you, right?
Yes, sir.
Clients tell us we should brag more about our kick-ass web hosting technology. But you see,
Katie is Sigfredo's wife, as you described her, right?
Yes, sir.
She has his numbers, right?
Yes, sir.
You have his numbers, right?
Yes, sir.
And just for the record, Sigfredo had multiple phones at all times, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's get to June 4th, okay? Or let's get to June 3rd. Do you remember what time Sigfredo came up to you and told you that he had a job for you in Tallahassee?
That was late night, maybe like about 10, 11 o'clock at night, somewhere around there.
Okay. And what time did you guys hit the road?
Excuse me?
What time did you guys get on the road?
Right away.
Right away. Okay. So let's just go ahead and say around 11 o'clock. Does that sound about right?
Maybe. I Can't really remember the time, but I'm saying like between 9 to 11 was out of the way.
Okay. 9 to 11 p.m.
Yes, sir.
And this is when Sigfredo Garcia came to you with a rented, was it a Nissan?
I think it was.
But you didn't rent the car there that day, correct?
Nope.
And he came to you and told you you had a job, right?
Yes.
And when did he tell you you had that job?
In my house.
Okay. And from there, and you went and you got a gun, right?
I can't remember if it was the same day or not.
Well, let me ask you this way. You had guns at your disposal, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're a Latin king. You can call. Did you have your own personal firearm?
No, I went and bought one.
Let me see if I didn't ask that question correctly. Did you have your own piece? Did you have your own firearm for your own protection prior to the day?
I always kept one.
You always kept it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had your own gun, right? Luis Rivera's gun, right?
Yes, sir.
But you chose not to take that gun because you wanted to find another gun. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because wouldn't that be a smarter thing to do? Have a firearm if you're going to commit, whether it's a home invasion or a murder, that nobody knows is yours, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, did you call one of your Latin King brothers to get a gun?
No.
Where'd you go?
To the corner.
To the corner, like in the hood?
In the hood.
Okay. And so you got a gun from a guy in the corner. White guy or black guy?
Black guy.
Black guy. So a black guy in the hood, you walked up to him and said, I need a piece, right?
Yes, sir.
Would it be safe to say, well, let me ask you this. In your Latin King manifesto, does it talk about not involving non-Latin kings to ensure integrity within your organization?
Are we for the murder case or for the Latin King case?
I think it's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Okay, so answer my question. Don't answer my question with a question.
It's not. What you talking about? You keep talking about the Latin Kings, where it ain't got nothing to do with
Well,
the
hold
murder.
on, but
murder.
you're King Tato, right?
Yeah, but it don't got nothing to do with the murder.
According to you, right? Because
No.
if you were,
Wait a minute, stop. Ask another question, just saying it then. Answer the question.
is
please.
there a portion of the Latin King manifesto which suggests that if you were to buy a gun to commit a crime, you'd buy it from another king to make sure you don't get in trouble?
No. You can buy it from wherever you want to buy it from.
You've been a leader of this organization since you were 15 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. And so you understand, I mean, you're cooperating now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you understand there's informants and cooperators everywhere, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Could be a stranger, could allegedly be your best friend, right?
Yes, sir.
So instead of calling one of your 100 gang member brothers, where you are the king of the castle, the lion of the jungle, you choose to go to the hood and ask a stranger for a gun. That's your testimony?
Yes, sir. Because
Okay.
they don't got nothing to do with what I'm about to do.
So you go and you get this firearm. Does the gun come with bullets at least?
No.
You have to buy bullets separately?
Yes, sir.
All right. Kind of like a toy without batteries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, Jay Shaffy. Lewis does come across as likable. And I don't know if it's embarrassing, but, you know, we can't like him too much because without him, you know, Professor Markel wouldn't have been shot in the face and lost his chin. So he did a bad thing. But, you know, I would completely set him free, and Katie, and Sigfredo, just to have Wendy behind bars. Forever. Live. On TV. I mean, forget it. Luis Rivera seems to have just given up the act, you know. He's just like, okay, so you want the whole truth? Well, here's the whole truth. But I had a thought about this. No one asks him, have you ever killed anyone else? And if he were asked that question, have you ever killed anyone else? You know, the terms of his deal require him to tell the truth to every question. So if he has killed someone else, but he said no, and then they found DNA later that showed that he did kill someone, and it was proven, the terms of his deal are nullified. So, you know, he'd get life or the death penalty for this case, I guess. It must be a pretty nerve-wracking 19 years when you don't know what's going on in the prosecutor's office, and you know. But you know, I mean, he does come across likable, but I think that's just because he's straight up. Straight up.
Say that
So where'd you go buy the bullets?
in a gun store.
So you didn't ask the same guy on the corner to throw you some bullets in?
No,
Okay. So you go to the gun store and do you buy a pack of bullets?
single bullets.
You buy single bullets? And is this regulated by the person that owns the firearm store?
No,
No? So you can just go buy bullets. You don't have to give ID or anything?
never gave my ID.
And you bought a single bullet?
Now we got a few bullets.
You bought 3 bullets.
A few bullets, like
I'm sorry,
like 15 bullets.
I
Oh, you want me to give you the
misunderstood.
number correct?
Well, it's kind of hard to hear you sometimes. So 15 bullets?
Yeah.
Did you call Garcia and ask him if he needed some bullets too?
Oh, he was with me.
He was with you.
Yeah.
Do you know what time it was that you went to so Garcia was with you when you went to the hood to get the gun?
No,
Okay. Which car did you use to go to the hood?
my car.
What kind of car is that?
I had an old Mercedes.
An old Mercedes?
Yeah.
Okay. So you drive your own.
Yeah, Rabbit. Like watching Luis Rivera and Georgia Kappelman talk together is like watching, I don't know, when world leaders, you know, say the president of the US is meeting with the president of France. You know, you've got these countries that have to respect each other, but they don't, you know, they're uncomfortable. But they're both at the top of their game and they're on TV. They just gotta, you know, I think Georgia Kappelman, maybe she doesn't like Luis Rivera, but I think she's certainly grateful that she has him as a witness. It's a huge, huge part of the case. Really difficult for any defendant's counsel to tear down his testimony. I think the best stab at that so far was Christopher DeCoaste's in Katie's retrial. You know, he rattled the cage. This guy's not even coming close to anything. In fact, I think he's aiding Georgia Kappelman's argument. You know, he's proving their point. Tara Kawas, I think, handles the cross in this trial, the 2019 trial. She loses it too. I think she didn't really know how to talk to him, or maybe she fancied him or something, you know, some weird thing. And then I can't really remember Rashbaum questioning him. It was so boring. But we'll get there. Don't worry.
Car to the hood.
Subscribe to the channel, guys. We are like 47 subscribers away from our milestone of 500 people. And you know what happens then? We release the merchandise. We get YouTube Premium so we don't have these ads and all sorts of benefits.
At this time, you already knew you needed the gun to commit whatever crime you thought that you were going to do, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you chose, and Garcia's right there with the rental car, right? Right?
When about the gun?
Right.
When
I mean-
about the gun, he was with it. Come on, come back. Come back with me, man.
After Garcia told you he had a job.
And Lewis always does these things when the lawyer is trying to reshape the truth and all of that. He's like, hey, come back. Are we here for the murder case or the Latin King case?
Job to do. How long after that did you go get the gun? Immediately?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I think I told you that already.
Well, I'm just trying to create a timeline.
Yeah, but you going back and forth trying to confuse me. We're not gonna do that. Just come on.
I'm not trying to confuse. I'm trying to ask a very simple question. He tells you you have a job, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. You assume this is a violent job, right? That's going to require you to get a firearm, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you go from where you live. Are you living with Jessica at the time, or are you on your Miami Beach house?
I live with Jessica.
Okay. So you go, it's 135th Street?
Yes, sir.
So where'd you go? The Pork and Beans? Which hood did you go to?
It's right.
Udi says, Katie, though, is pretty evil in his opinion. I think it's a he. She needs to do some time. I got some opinions on Katie Magbanua, but I think rather than discuss them here, it's going to be when we start the Catherine Magbanua series. Walk through all of her trials, 2019, 2022, and her testimony in Charlie's trial, 2023. Be there for the team.
Around the corners. I live in the hood, man.
Okay. So you go down the street in your car, right?
Yes, sir.
And you buy a firearm.
Yes, sir.
And then you come back and get in the car with Garcia, and then you go buy bullets?
Now you confused me right there, though. I think I'm with Garcia in the car. I
Okay.
can remember. I
Okay.
can remember.
Okay, now you can. Okay. So after you get the bullets, do you guys head up north?
We got the bullets the next day, man.
Okay.
Let me refresh my memory. You going back and forth.
No,
on
listen, take your time. Take your time.
me. We got nothing but time. We got 19 years.
Nothing but time.
Can't take that long.
Thing. Ask a question.
Come on.
Be fearless. Change is good. I don't really care if
I was thinking about just pausing the video and running through Mr. Zangeneh's points so far and how he's shaping this story. But I really don't think there's any point. I mean, he's trying to say you knew people in Tallahassee where you could have got a gun. Well, so what? I mean, he's saying they did the murder. Like, what does it matter where they got the gun? You know.
You got a citation on June 4th in the morning, right? The prosecution showed you?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get the gun on June 3rd or June 2nd?
I already had the gun going up there.
That wasn't my question, sir. My question is, after Mr. Garcia allegedly told you about this purported job, you said that you went to get a gun, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he tell you about this job the night of or the day before you left going north?
No, the same night he told me about it.
Okay. The same night. So you went down the corner, got the gun, and then got your bullets and then headed up north, right?
Yes, sir.
You testified originally on direct examination that he drove, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the prosecutor showed you a ticket, and then you said, well, we had to switch out, right?
Yes, sir.
Is it your testimony? Well, let me ask you this. Were you and Garcia drinking on your way up north?
Every time.
Every time. Okay.
And snorting coke.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm getting to. And you and Garcia were drinking and driving, right?
Yes, sir.
Snorting cocaine.
Yes, sir.
Who was snorting more coke, you or Sigfredo?
Sigfredo.
I'm sorry, Mr. Garcia. I apologize, sir. Mr. Garcia, who was doing more coke, you or him?
Him.
Okay. Like a little bit or a lot more?
Just a lot, not a little bit more.
A little bit more. How much cocaine did you and Mr. Garcia go through from Miami to Gainesville?
Can't remember.
And a gram?
I can't remember.
2 grams?
I can't remember, sir.
How much did you take up there?
I don't remember.
About an 8 ball sound right?
Maybe a little bit more, probably.
Okay. So a little bit more than the 8 ball is how many grams?
3.5.
So 3.5 is 1 8 ball. So you took a little bit more. So let's say would about 5 grams sound about right?
Probably.
So it's your testimony that as an experienced gang member, you get in a rental car.
Sounds like we're about to repeat what's been said. Mr. Zangeneh. We're not going to keep repeating everything twice. Let's move on, please.
Okay. In the car that you were driving, you had been drinking alcohol. There were little alcohol bottles.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you got pulled over by the police, you were driving, right? Obviously, you got the ticket, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you check to see if you had any remnants?
Little alcohol bottles. What is it with that? Like what you get on an airplane? Like tiny little 10 milliliter bottles of Jack Daniels or something? I mean, is that because of driving? Is it like not a charge if it's open or something? Why not just take a whatever? A flask or like a big bottle.
Of cocaine powder on your nose?
Not at all.
What about Mr. Garcia? Did you look to see if he had any remnants of cocaine on his nose?
No.
And in the car are 2 firearms?
Yes, sir.
I don't remember what number exhibit this is.
Is it mine?
This is, I was going to introduce it, but you introduced it before me.
Is it the ticket?
Yes,
Here's-
no problem.
So they're pulled over at like 9 in the morning doing 100 miles an hour in a 60. They've been drinking all night, driving all night. Sigfredo's got cocaine, rock candy all over his shirt. They're wired up, and the cops like giving them a citation. This is another thing that I just don't get, all those body cam videos of cops pulling over DUI suspects and stuff, they are so like not lenient. They're just like, okay, step out of the car, sir. Is there anything in the car that I should know about, sir? They've got 2 guns on them. They're supposed to be keeping a low profile,
The government introduced this in evidence. I don't recall what the exhibit number is, Mr. Rivera.
81.
Government's exhibit 81, which is going to be popping up on the screen, is a copy of the citation.
Yep, we did it.
There we go.
Hey, Mary. Mary Bartlett says, does anyone know if Lewis ever had/showed remorse? Thank God he decided to turn state witness either way. Well, I don't think he's ever really shown significant remorse. And, I think he sees it as if it wasn't going to be him doing the murder, him and Sigfredo doing the murder. It was still going to get done. So he got his 35 large, his Toyota Camry, his motorbike, and then was back to being in the black, paycheck to paycheck, after like 2 or 3 months of living it up. You know, and for that, he was a player in putting bullets in Professor Markel's face, ruining so many lives. But you know, I think he's kind of right. I'm not saying it excuses his actions, his involvement, but you know, those Adelsons were obsessed with getting this done. Why were they so obsessed? Because it was an act that would defend their image. They weren't going to let Dan Markel move on with a girl better than Wendy in every way, in every possible way. House in the Hamptons, famous fashion designer brother, revered law professor at New York University with tenure, tenured law professor. Wendy didn't have tenure. She could have been fired at any moment. You know, and the other thing is, like, they saw, you know, I think Professor Markel was quite happy living in Tallahassee. He'd chosen where to settle. He got a job that he could do until retirement if he wanted. He liked to share knowledge, you know. There's an interview with his dad, Phil Markel, and he's saying that, you know, when Professor Markel, Dan, graduated, Phil's advice was, well, why don't you go and get a job at a nice big firm, put a chunk in the bank, and then teach? Professor Markel was all like, I want to teach. I want to make people better. You know, just the kind of guy he was. And I think he was quite happy, set up in Tallahassee. He'd bought a family home, got the kids into some nice Hebrew Academy schools or whatever. You know, became really instrumental and active at synagogue, his local synagogue, Flexodox. Schneyer Eurichman was loving Markel coming in, you know. And Charlie and Donna and Wendy saw that as, you know, because he didn't want the kids to move away because he wouldn't get to see them. They saw it as him saying that Wendy couldn't have the kids. You know, that's how they twist it in their minds. These personalities, these dangerous, dark personalities, they will make a villain out of you. You know, they will say, Professor Markel is trying to take the kids away, when it's Wendy who's trying to take the kids away. They're from Tallahassee, the kids at least. Yeah. So I think the murder would have happened whether Luis Rivera was in on it or not. And you know, I think he knows that, which is, I think he does feel sad, you know. But don't forget also that maybe this information hadn't come down to Lewis, but Charlie was always complaining to Katie about how Markel was a terrible guy and a villain and full of rage, and, you know, when a picture, this is why, you know, Heard It Through the Grapevines tells us, believe none of what you hear and a half of what you see.
Your name is Luis Manuel Rivera, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The location on your driver's... I think this will be better. Sorry, Judge. The location on your driver's license as your address is 1805 Normandy Drive, apartment 3. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's in Miami Beach, Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How long had you lived in Miami Beach?
My whole life.
You're born April 25th, 1983.
Yes, sir.
You're a Hispanic male and you're 5'4".
Yes, sir.
And the citation is going 90 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour zone, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in conjunction to all the things that I've already described, the firearms, the drugs, the empty bottles, you were going 90 miles an hour at 9 o'clock in the morning, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the officer that pulled you over is a Florida, was it a Florida, it was a FHP, Florida Highway Patrol?
I think so.
At any point, did he ask you to exit the vehicle to determine if he needed to conduct field sobriety exercises?
No, sir.
Did you smoke any marijuana in the car?
No, sir.
Did you take any marijuana with you?
No, sir.
So it's you and Mr. Garcia in a rental car with all the contraband we discussed, and Trooper Downing just issues you a citation for speeding, correct?
Yes, sir.
Retail business? This 80-second video is about to completely change the way you work.
And it was at 9:12 a.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, that citation took place on a mile marker in Gainesville, right here. I-75 northbound, mile marker 374. Is that correct? Let me go ahead and move that in for you.
He's telling me where to go. I don't even know where I was at.
And who's he?
Garcia.
Garcia. Did he have his GPS on his phone?
In his brain.
In his brain.
Yeah, you can say any address on the planet to Sigfredo Garcia, and his brain will produce a map. His brain is like Google Earth. You know, sometimes he can do it with just a zip code, just straight zip code and the state initials, and he'll just take us right there.
Had you ever been up to Tallahassee with Mr. Garcia before?
Never in my life.
And it was your testimony earlier that Mr. Garcia never utilized his cell phone GPS. Is that correct?
No.
And as you indicated to the members of this jury, he was right next to you. If he was using his phone, you would have been able to see that he was using his phone for GPS, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was able to get you not only from Miami, Florida to Tallahassee, but to drive around in Tallahassee to the appropriate locations. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know roughly how far mile marker 374 is from Gainesville to Tallahassee?
No idea.
After you received this citation, who drove? Did you continue driving?
Yes, sir.
And so from at least Gainesville to Tallahassee, you drove the rest of the way.
Yes, sir.
Did you guys still have the alcohol bottles in the Nissan after you got pulled over?
Yeah. It was in a brown paper bag.
Brown paper bag. You didn't think to throw it out afterwards?
C. Malone wonders if they were doing chubby rails off keys. No, come on, man. They were doing coke off a Bowie knife. You know, like any good gangster would. Just a big 14-inch Bowie knife stacked with cocaine.
Nah, it didn't cross my mind.
How many drinks would you say that you had consumed?
I can't remember that.
Was it one?
I can't remember that, sir.
Was it two?
Move on, Mr. Zangeneh.
What about Mr. Garcia? Were you watching how many alcoholic beverages he was consuming?
Not at all.
How many alcoholic beverages, how many little bottles did you guys buy?
About a bunch. I just can't remember how many.
Give me a rough estimate of what
I
a
can't
bunch
remember
is.
how many, sir.
I mean, I am just as frustrated as the judge listening to this. It's like, how many tiny airplane bottles of alcohol did Sigfredo consume on the way to kill Professor Markel? What probative value does that have of anything? I mean, where is he going with that? It's almost just like he wants to ask any question with this air of doubt, you know. And the shirt that Sigfredo was wearing that day, had it been properly ironed? Was he wearing a belt?
Multiple? That means more than two?
Of course, it's more than two, but I can't remember how many.
And do you remember how long it took to drive from Miami to Gainesville?
Multiple doesn't mean more than two, it means more than one. I don't know if opposite is the right word, but it's multiple or singular. Two is multiple. You know, he said multiple is more than two. That's not true.
I don't know. It took a couple of hours. I mean, a bunch of hours. I don't remember, though.
And during that time, did you guys consume all the alcoholic beverages that you had from Miami to Gainesville? Or did you have more alcohol after you got pulled over?
No, I think we had drank them all already.
So when you get to Tallahassee, and you're still driving, right?
Yes, sir.
Where do you go on June 4th, the same day of the citation?
We went straight to the hotel. Then we went to go rent a hotel that day.
You went to rent a hotel. Okay. And did you pick the hotel, or did Mr. Garcia pick the hotel?
Garcia picked the hotel.
Do you remember which exit you guys took off the highway?
No, sir.
You were driving though, right?
Yes, sir.
And how much of the cocaine did
Yeah, Katerina, this lawyer, Mr. Zangeneh, probably studied at the University of Aruba.
you have left? Do you remember?
No, I can't remember.
Do you think you had burned through most of it?
Probably.
And would it be a fair assessment to say that you hadn't slept all night?
Yeah, I ain't sleep.
Okay. And the night before, you didn't know that this was going to be occurring, right? You found out that night, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you had been up all day and all night?
Driving.
Correct. And you consumed multiple alcoholic beverages, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you and Mr. Garcia had consumed multiple grams of cocaine. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's also your testimony that somewhere after Orlando, that Mr. Garcia, according to you, tells you that this is a homicide, right?
Is that first trip or the second trip?
First trip,
Okay.
right?
Yes, sir.
That's when you find out it's a homicide.
I just want to make sure, sir.
Okay. And it's your testimony to these jurors that he told you that he was going to give you either 30 or 35 stacks, right?
Yes, sir.
It's also been your testimony to this jury that you believed that he thought that you were going to do the shooting, right?
Yes, sir.
And just for the record, your testimony is that you did not do the shooting, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you still receive the same amount of money?
Yes, sir.
So for not committing the act that you were hired to do, right? Because it's your testimony that Sigfredo Garcia, Mr. Garcia, hired you to commit this murder, not to be your tag along, that he still paid you the amount of money that he told you that he'd pay you at the beginning, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he didn't tell you, hey, listen, I thought you were going to actually do the murder and I had to do it. So I'm going to give you, man, I'll give you 10 stacks for 2 rides, right?
Yeah.
So you got $35,000 for 2 rides from Miami to Tallahassee,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
When you find a good stopping point, Mr.
I can stop right now.
I think the jury's probably had enough for the day.
Yes, Judge.
I wasn't saying stop right this moment, just find a good
Absolutely.
stopping
If you
point.
think the jury's done for the day, we'll pick back up tomorrow. My pleasure.
It's a decent.
That's
stopping
fine.
point.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think probably reach a point where things hard to keep your concentration. Don't discuss the case with anyone. Don't let anyone discuss the case with you. 8:45 tomorrow. I guess we probably know the drill pretty well by now. We'll see y'all in the morning. Either side have any issues?
Just a time for tomorrow?
Same time every day, 8:30.
Just checking, just want to make
All
sure.
right. We need to resolve the discovery issue. If the state's going to pursue putting in the list, I need to see some showing that the defense has been provided.
Man, I think Mr. Hand Grenade was super glad the judge was like, okay, we're about done. And he just ended it right there. He was just like, well, I can stop right now because I'm going nowhere. And I really need to think this through tonight in my hotel because I have dropped the ball on this most important witness. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'll stop right now. In fact, can we go back in time and I won't even begin because I was totally unprepared and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying to maintain an air of confidence. But I know that I'm not. I mean, that could not have been less useful for his client. He might as well have just gotten up there and sketched on the overhead projector, so that the jury could see. Just sort of not even asked any questions. Just done, drawn like a comic book cartoon where there's a story in boxes and speech bubbles, and like the cartoon shows the Prius arriving at Professor Markel's house, and then the next square is like Sigfredo gets out with a gun, and the next square is he's pointing it at the window, and the next square is Sigfredo running from the scene. That's what he should have done. That would have been more useful. I mean, really? Sigfredo must, bless him, sort of, but he must have been sat in that chair thinking, all right, I haven't thought much of my lawyer so far, but really, this is the only witness that counts. So maybe there's still a shot. If he does a really good job on this one, I could win. And then, 14 seconds into the examination, he's like, okay, so what is that? A pallet lawyer's number? We're going to need him. I want him on retainer. Okay. Tell him, as soon as this trial's done, I want a block of 3 months of his time. Yeah. So should we go on to the next day? I think that runs for about another hour, so I don't know if I'll do the whole thing. Damn these long videos. We need to get back to some interviews, guys. There's always so much more to say and to talk about with interviews. You know why? Because examinations, direct, cross, redirect, they're almost not live conversations in a way. You know, the lawyer, especially Georgia Kappelman, has it all laid out. You know, has it laid out to tell its own story. So for us to come in and, you know, make comments sometimes just feels a bit redundant because she's doing it for us. But with something like Wendy's interview, anyone who hasn't seen the series on this channel, by the way, which is our most popular series by far, I'm thinking about revisiting the whole thing, you know, just going back to square one and doing the whole Wendy series again and trying to pick up on different bits that we let slip through the cracks last time. You know, sometimes there's so much going on that it's impossible to list everything in one go. But there's a lot more to see. Let's play a bit more of the next day of Mr. Hand Grenade and see how far we get. And like I said, guys, subscribe to the channel. I think we're sticking with the Dan Markel case up until next Monday, which is the Sarah Boone case, starting in Winter Park, Florida. I don't know what the county is. But we're going to be covering that live. But after that, I think we're going to take a break from the Dan Markel case and all the trials that have been, and we might move on. I've got a really nice short list that ain't so short of trials we want to cover on this channel, and yeah, we'll be doing some more of that with more interrogation interview footage, because like I said, there's oftentimes so much more to see and do. So don't miss that. Make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, like, share, leave a comment. We are maybe 40 subscribers away from our goal. So, you know, do us all a favor, yeah. Share this tab instead. Okay, so we're moving on to day 4, 2019.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Rivera, good morning.
Good morning.
I've got up here on the screen. Can you see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
I've got up on the screen phone records that have been entered into evidence as Government's Exhibit 128. There's a portion right here.
If you can read that, his eyes are a whole lot better than mine. You can't blow that up a little bit. I think there's a knob there. I've seen them use.
It's through the laptop.
Okay. All right.
The government asked you this on direct examination yesterday, and I just want to confirm that your phone number, or one of your two phone numbers, was 305-570-8153. You recall that, sir?
Yes, sir.
And what's already been entered into evidence is Government's Exhibit 128, are the specifics that AT&T has and that they document and they keep with regards to your phone activity, sir. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
And your phone activity that's documented in this state's exhibit, it includes phone calls as well as text messages. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
You indicated yesterday that you are unable to read and write. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
From the month of May of 2014 till October of 2014, with phone number 305-570-8153, were you aware that you participated in 7,885 text messages back and forth?
Yes, sir.
And you'll agree with me, a text message is a nonverbal communication?
You can talk to the phone and it'll spell it out for you.
And that's your testimony that that's what you did in every single text message?
Yes, sir. I had an iPhone.
And what about receiving text messages? They were also voicemails. That's your testimony?
Yeah, they read it out to you.
And you indicated also that you were attempting to get your GED, but we interrupted your education
Yes, sir.
in your testimony yesterday. In 2016, while in federal custody, did you take any classes with regards to reading and writing?
I've been doing that my whole life, though. So, yeah.
So you've been taking classes to read and write your whole life. Isn't it true that in 2016, while in federal custody, as part of the federal program, you received passing grades with regards to reading and writing courses?
I get help. I got a tutor.
So you didn't really answer my question. I see that you had a tutor, but the answer is yes, correct? You received passing grades
Yes,
in
sir.
reading and writing.
Yes, sir. I had a tutor.
And yesterday, when the government asked you to read a document, your testimony under oath was that you can't read and write, correct?
I can.
So let's go back to what we were talking about yesterday with regards to your June 4th trip. And that's the trip that you took in a Nissan, I believe it was Sentra, correct?
I guess so.
Now, you didn't rent the Nissan, correct?
No, sir.
But in the July trip, you did rent the Toyota Prius, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was your testimony yesterday that you rented it while Mr. Garcia was around the corner waiting for you outside of the rental place, correct?
Yes, sir.
Show the jury.
Why don't, before you, why don't let the technician handle that instead of you switch to the Elmo type function?
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Rivera, you filled out this document alone while Mr. Garcia was around the corner, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you wrote your name right here
Yes, sir.
where it says renter's name.
Yes, sir.
You didn't write the name of where the unit number is, correct?
What unit?
Right next to it, to the right, where it says unit number. You didn't mistakenly put your name where it says unit number. You put your name where it says name, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's because you read the word name and you knew to write your name next.
No, I asked the guy where do I write my name and everything. He told me fill it out right here. Is what you put your name and your address.
So all this was at the assistance of somebody else, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rivera? Can you read that?
It's my name,
What does it say?
Luis Rivera.
You can't read this whole thing?
My name, Luis Rivera.
Your name, so it says, my name is Luis Rivera?
Yeah. It's like a third grade level.
Hold on. But it's your testimony now, but where it says renter's name right here, you needed assistance.
Yes, sir. At that time I needed it. I'm taking classes now to learn how to read and write.
When you took your final exam in your GED level course in federal prison, was your tutor there with you when you passed?
Yes,
Did
sir.
he take your exam with you?
He was right next to me.
Government's exhibit.
This guy is so unprepared. He's just wandering up and down to the projector, back to the podium, looking through papers like they mean something to him. You know, selecting one and then making a question, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? You know, you're trying to look really busy, and you know, the jury have all left. They don't want to come back in until you're off.
83. It's going to be your testimony that the person that budgeted also helped you fill out this form?
Yes, sir.
Couldn't do it on your own?
No, I can't.
And it's your testimony that you asked the person at the budgeted to read the document so you could fill out exactly what you needed.
Yes, sir. I asked him.
When you come face to face with a process that's not working, are you paralyzed by that or galvanized by it? If you feel the urge to make it faster, cheaper, better, there's a good chance you're one of us. Salonis.
On the June 4th trip, did you ever indicate that Sigfredo drove the whole way?
June 16th?
The June 4th trip, have you ever previously said that the person that was driving the entire trip was Sigfredo Garcia?
He rode halfway and I rode the other half.
Have you ever indicated in previous statements that he was the only person that drove?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And today was the first time when the prosecution showed you that you actually got the ticket, that your testimony was that you drove the second half, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And isn't it also true that in other statements that you've given, you indicated that you received the ticket on the July 14th trip, correct?
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about June 4th. Had you previously testified that you arrived in Tallahassee in the early morning time?
Yes.
All right. And your previous testimony had been that you'd arrived around 9 or 10 in the morning, correct? Maybe earlier?
Yeah, I said that.
Okay. And that your previous testimony was when you got there that you kept partying, right, for a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you guys went to sleep for about an hour before you headed out, correct?
I don't remember that. I said an hour?
But you went
remember.
to sleep for a little bit, correct?
Probably.
So arrived in Tallahassee in the early morning hours, kept drinking and doing cocaine, and then slept for a little bit before you left to go to Mr. Markel's house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you'll agree with me that when the government showed you your travel citation in Gainesville, about 250 miles away, multiple hours away at 9 a.m.
How far away, Mr. Zangeneh?
I'm sorry?
How far away?
About
Let's
200
not mislead the witness, please. That's
Well,
not accurate.
Okay. From Gainesville to Tallahassee, right? It's quite a drive, correct?
Yes, sir.
More than 100 miles, if you recall?
I don't know, sir.
So between Gainesville and Tallahassee, multiple hours, and the citations at 9:12 a.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And your testimony changed and your timeline changed yesterday when the prosecution showed you the ticket. Is that correct?
I don't know about my time change, but
Your timeline.
my timeline?
Yes. Because you'll agree with me beforehand, you said that you got here in the early morning time, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you received the citation at 9:12, and Gainesville's at least 100 miles, as you indicated. It's quite a drive from Gainesville to Tallahassee, you'll
I guess
agree,
so.
correct? Right. So you'll agree with me that you did not arrive in the early morning time. You were in Gainesville in the early morning time, right?
Yes, sir.
You also indicated on direct examination that Mr. Garcia never used any kind of navigation technology on his phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So it's your testimony that you got to and it's also been your testimony that you've never come to Tallahassee before, correct?
Never been to Tallahassee.
And that Mr. Garcia at no point utilized any kind of electronic media to help him get around in Tallahassee, right?
He never used any electronic, but we did stop in the store.
And you got a map.
Yes, sir.
And you said that he looked at it once and didn't look at it again, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So your testimony is that Mr. Garcia looked at a map once and never looked at it again.
Yes, sir.
Is Tallahassee like Miami in terms of how the streets are, like avenues and streets, like numbers and like how you can go? I'm going up from 88th Street to 157th Street. They don't have that here, do they?
I don't think so.
And you also testified that you purchased a gun, right?
Yes, sir.
And that you purchased bullets, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Zangeneh, we're not going to repeat everything you did yesterday. I think we did it 2 or 3 times yesterday. That's enough. Move on.
When you get to the hotel room, the first time, you said that you had somebody purchase the room for you, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the reason why you would do that was because you wanted to potentially hide. You didn't want to leave any kind of footprint that you were in Tallahassee, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's because, according to your testimony, your best friend tells you several hours into a trip that it's not a robbery, it's a homicide.
Yes, sir.
Would you consider that misleading?
What you mean by misleading?
Right. So your testimony has been, and you've proffered to this jury that he's somebody that you've grown up with and he's one of your best friends, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you'll agree with me that your testimony in court is that he didn't tell you the purpose of the trip, right?
He didn't tell me at the beginning.
Right. Well, that's what I'm talking about. To get you to go on the trip, he didn't tell you the purpose of it, right?
Yes, sir.
But he did offer you money.
Yes, he did.
And it was your testimony yesterday that the second day that you were there, you didn't feel like going forward with the murder, correct?
Repeat that question again, please.
No problem.
Okay, guys, it's lights out here. My eyelids are really heavy. It's like they have 3-pound weights on them. But if you guys wanted to continue watching the testimony, you could do so on the Law and Crime channel. Link in the description to the original video. Oh, excuse me, that we used. We may not be on live tomorrow. I think we might have a day off on Wednesday. We've got some other shit we got to do. But we'll be back to finish off this Mr. Hand Grenade cross-examination of Luis Rivera in 2019. Okay, guys, we will see you all later. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Keep an eye out. Subscribe to the channel. and yeah, be kind to each other. Have honor. Live with honor, and don't be an Adelson. All right? All right.